main problems that people have is drugs, alcohol, junk food, and not doing enough exercise. People do want to drink alcohol if people like whiskey or wine. I think a good rule of thumb that we see in the blood work is about 1 to 2 standard drinks. If other people see you not keeping your word to yourself, then they're not going to listen to you. Because if you don't even listen to yourself, then your word's not worth anything. The problem with deep fried food is in that fryer, that oil is sitting there for a long time and it heats and cools and heats and cools and it becomes rancid in that process. So eating food that you cook at home that's high protein, probably similar food to what people's parents and grandparents cooked in this country.
Yes.
That's a really good foundation for the diet. The Western diet is much higher in grains and processed sugars and high fructose corn syrup and all of this garbage. So eating a diet that's got a good amount of meat, got a good amount of protein, but it's also that's home cooked, minimally processed, a really good place to start. The other stuff that I like to kind of put it in 2 categories. So that's the stuff that we want to get into the body, so sunlight and nutrition. Then we want to focus on movement. So I like to recommend that people do a combination of cardiovascular exercise and resistance training. So it can be weightlifting, martial arts, calisthenics like gymnastics, whatever people enjoy. And then also making sure that you're getting your steps in every day. So 8 to 10,000 steps a day. One of the challenges that we have, particularly post-COVID, is that when people are working from home or studying from home, they're not getting in those 1,000 steps here and 1,000 steps there and 500 steps to the car and all these kind of things. So if you're working quite a sedentary role, especially from home, make sure you have some dedicated times throughout the day to go for a walk. And if you're wanting to improve your business or improve self-development, listen to an audiobook or a podcast while you're doing that to kind of hit 2 birds with 1 stone. But the big one that brings all that together is the stuff that you avoid. And the big one that people need to avoid is alcohol. I drank a lot of alcohol when I was younger as a musician. Globally, there's all different drinking cultures. Over here, you guys have alcohol in the supermarkets. It's a lot cheaper, so it's more visible.
Yeah.
In Australia, we have like dedicated alcohol shops, so it's not
Oh,
always
you
in
can
your...
buy it in grocery stores?
No. So we have we call them bottle shops, which is
Okay.
it's kind of like Vinoteca.
Uh-huh.
So they're in most places, but yeah, we don't have alcohol in supermarkets or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I think people underestimate when alcohol's just not in front of you all the time, it changes the
Yeah.
relationship with it. But alcohol here is also a lot cheaper. We have a lot more deterrent taxes in Australia. So when alcohol's in the supermarket and it's cheap, I think that creates a big problem, especially here in the winter and it's dark. I don't drink, I don't like alcohol. And I remember sitting at home in the start of December and I was like, I see why people drink. There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
So I think that you have to have very good willpower and very good discipline to not succumb to those vices in winter. If people do want to drink alcohol, if people particularly like beer, like you guys have got really good beer here. If people like whiskey or wine or, people really like an alcohol, I think a good rule of thumb that we see in the blood work is about 1 to 2 standard drinks, which for a shot of, let's say whiskey is about 30 to 60 mil of whiskey. 1 to 2 times a week is about the most that we would see someone get away with. Less or 0 is better, but not drinking to intoxication is really important.
Right.
When you're 18, 19, 20, how old do you have to be to drink alcohol now? Did it change?
21, I think.
It went up, yeah.
Yeah.
My wife's brother, it went up after he turned 18. It was quite funny. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
but it's very normal when people become of age to drink that, you go out to the clubs and the bars and you party because you've now got this freedom that you didn't have
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
It's totally
Mhm.
normal. But you've kind of got to cut that behavior out when you get older because when you start to want to work on either self-development or running a business, you basically have to find something that you are going to master, whether it's a skill or a knowledge area or something that you can provide value for society as a whole or the people around you, but you want to start to develop mastery of that area, that niche. That's how you provide value and level up as a professional. If you spend 1 or 2 nights a week drunk and then another day recovering from that, you're losing significant amounts of time over the course of the week that you need to be using to level up your personal development, your business, your all these different things. You can't be wasting all that time, effort, and energy on poisoning your body to get a buzz.
Yeah.
That's one of the most harmful things to testosterone production is not just the alcohol itself, but then the damage on like sleep and metabolism and inflammation that comes from that. So sunlight, exercise, or sunlight where possible, exercise, good nutrition, and avoiding alcohol. If people take care of those things, and I often say that the main problems that people have is drugs, alcohol, junk food, and not doing enough exercise. And the best thing that people can do, because I'm a big believer that people often know more than they realize, is that if you sit down and you write a list and you go, what are all the things that I'm doing that I know that I shouldn't be doing? And then what are all the things that I'm not doing that I know that I should be doing? If you just fix that, you'll probably make some pretty good
Yeah.
progress.
If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below.
And now talking about your lifestyle. So, what are you guilty of in your lifestyle? What mistakes do you make, even as a disciplined person?
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't slip up on alcohol because I'm fortunate that I don't like it. I don't like the taste of beer or whiskey or wine or anything
Mm.
like that. And I also don't like the effect of alcohol when when you have more than a couple of drinks and you kind of feel that kind of kicking in. I don't personally like that, so I'm very good at avoiding alcohol. The stuff that I slip up on, I I don't slip up on it anymore because I slipped up on it so many fucking times that I just eventually learned my lesson. But the thing that I slipped up on the most for a long time was I didn't do enough of the stretching and mobility and like rehabilitation work that I knew that my body needed. I've had multiple spinal injuries. I've spent a lot of time sitting in a chair in a computer like this, very stressed out, very mentally drained. And I've also spent a lot of time lifting heavy weights, and I didn't do anywhere near enough cardio exercise, running, stretching, all that kind of stuff. And I remember one day, and this was like a couple of years ago, I was sitting at my desk. I'd had to take a bunch of painkillers, and I don't like taking painkillers. And I was sitting there, and I said to myself, if I had done 10 minutes of stretching and mobility every day for the last year, I wouldn't have these problems. And that was difficult for me to tell myself because I was teaching all these other guys to do stuff like this. And I was like,
Yeah.
but I'm not doing it myself. And if I had to be very honest with myself, the reason why I wasn't doing it was because when you're really stiff and tight, stretching sucks. Like it sucks. It's kind of like if you've never gone for a run and you go for a
Yeah.
run, it sucks. But that sensation, it's kind of like if you've never been for a run and running sucks, it's like that probably means you need to run more. Same with stretching. Like when stretching and mobility just feels horrible, um, it means you have to do more of it. And not only did I get that signal and wake up call, but in the year after that, I still didn't commit to it. Like I would still, and that was even worse because then I'd feel terrible because I'd be like, I know what the solution to this is. And I know that if I'd actually kept my word to myself that I wouldn't be in all this pain. But I've just been lazy and I'd go to bed, make an excuse not to do my stretching, and then I'd wake up the next day, I'd be in pain, have to take painkillers, and I just feel like a piece of shit. And I'd feel like a hypocrite, and I'd feel like I wasn't able to even keep my word to myself. Um, that was really challenging. And the thing that snapped me out of that was that, and I can't remember who said it. Otherwise, I'd love to give them credit. But it was a podcast I was listening to, and it basically said that if other people see you not keeping your word to yourself, then they're not going to listen to you. Because if you don't even listen to yourself, then your word's not worth anything. Um, and I was very big on the idea of leading by example. And from that point onwards, only because I had screwed it up so many times, I can now very proudly say that I haven't skipped a day of stretching and mobility, even with all the travel and everything that I've done in well over a year. My pain levels are very low. I'm doing very well with that. But that took me a long time to get on track purely because it's an uncomfortable thing to do that doesn't give you an immediate reward, which is
Yeah.
just like a lot of things in business. But I was prioritizing the things that made me money, or I was prioritizing other people's health and wellness over my own. And I had to sort that out to basically go, if I want to look after other people really, really well and do a good job at what I'm doing, I have to look after myself first. And that was a bit of a process of being like, okay, I just need to get up earlier every morning. I need to allocate some extra time for this thing that will ultimately allow me to take care of other people better. But it was just forcing myself to do the uncomfortable thing consistently over and over and over again. And yeah, I wish I could say that I learned that lesson quickly, but it took years.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that as well. I
Yep.
I rarely stretch, and I know I should stretch,
Yep.
but I just have this habit because I used to play football,
Yep.
and basically we would just gather to the training sessions, and we would just immediately play football
Yep.
and run and stuff. So I'm good with running and doing like other exercises. I can develop habits on that, but
Mm.
stretching is way more difficult. But yeah, I have an interesting topic. Have you seen this guy?
Brian Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on him?
One of the best digital marketers of our age. I think he's done a phenomenal job with what he's doing because through his blueprint project, he's become one of the most central and well recognized people in the health and fitness industry,
Yes.
which he formerly had uh, no one knew he was at all.
Yeah.
So if you look at the amount of money that he invested in the blueprint campaign
I mean,
and
he's
his
a
protocol,
millionaire. Yeah.
yeah. But if you gave a PR company that much money, they probably wouldn't be able to get you the level of exposure that he's gotten from that. So I think his entire thing has been one of the coolest examples of a personal brand development and digital marketing strategy that I've seen in a long time. I completely disagree with the majority of the interventions that he's making with his health. Actually, I wouldn't say the majority of them. A lot of it's misguided because the science that his team is working on is a little bit misguided. So, for example, he follows a vegan diet,
Yeah.
but he takes a handful of supplements of nutrients that you get from eating meat. Um, and I think it's just because a lot of the science that is his team is basing things off, it's not the best form of science. A lot of it is observational science. A lot of the stuff that he's doing is great. The stuff he does with exercise is really cool.
Yeah.
The stuff that he's doing with just tracking and publishing everything, I think is awesome. Um,
What
some of
about Sun's blood?
that stuff's weird. Um, I don't know. I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but people were saying for a long time that the elites were drinking or injecting young people's blood to live longer, and then he does it in the open, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's celebrated. I think that crosses a line.
Yeah.
I also think that a lot of the stuff he's doing with hormones, I mean, he says he's taking a non-feminizing form of estrogen. I don't know. It seems pretty feminized to me. But each to their own, people can do what they want to do. The thing that I think is interesting is that his whole premise is about living longer, and he's saying
Yeah.
living forever, which obviously is not possible, but living longer. Longevity is a really interesting field in general, and he's basically gone all into longevity. So if we look at, again, if we use the car analogy, basically there's a spectrum of performance and longevity. So if you increase performance, you tend to trade off longevity. And if you increase longevity, you tend to trade off performance. Most of us, I would assume, trying to find the sweet spot in the middle. So if I said to someone, hey, if you did XYZ, you're not going to live longer. Let's say you're still going to die at, I don't know, 85 to 95 years old. but you'll be living and breathing and exercising and feeling good up until the day you die.
You have to understand is that testosterone does not by default make you a masculine man. It facilitates you becoming that man, but it will not do that work for you. How does testosterone impact how you feel, and how are those mechanisms occurring in the brain?